Welcome, everyone, to Mayhemtainment. I am your host, JD, and we have another WWE pay-per-view to review by request. We are reviewing Wrestlemania 7. It's a big card, 15 matches, 13, 14 matches on the total card. Had a little bit of everything. The Tag Team Championship was on the line, the Intercontinental Championship, and the WWE Championship. Andre the Giant made an appearance, and then possibly the worst gimmick match of all of pro wrestling history. Please like and share this episode out. Leave us a comment. Visit our storefront, bonfire.com/store/JDEDESIGNz. That's with a Z at the end of it. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our channels on Rumble and YouTube. Rumble is the only place that you can find all of our episodes in their entirety. WrestleMania, I always have a lot of guests. So Regis and Alec Trebek were some of the major guests that they had. They do a great job. Bobby Heenan manages many wrestlers, so he does some commentating, and then whenever his wrestlers are wrestling, then they bring in like a guest commentator that does a match with Gorilla Monsoon. Brain and Gorilla Monsoon do a great job during this WrestleMania. I give them 9 body slams is how we review things when we do wrestling reviews on Mayhemtainment. I give them 9 body slams for Brain and Gorilla. They did a great job together. Normally, past pay-per-views, Brain and Gorilla haven't been the greatest team because they're both kind of color guys and there's no play-by-play guy. And there still really wasn't a play-by-play guy in this, but they did a really great job in this one. I give Gorilla and his other various guest commentators for that a 7 on the body slam scale. The first match is a tag team match. Haku and the Barbarian against the Rockers. Haku is known as Ming in the WCW, later in the WCW a few years later. And coincidentally, Ming or Haku and Barbarian also tag team in WCW as the Faces of Fear. They're in the Dungeon of Doom for a little while, and then when that breaks up, they still tag team just as the Faces of Fear, managed by Jimmy Hart. It's a great starter match. All 4 men are great in the ring. Shawn Michaels, of course, this is still when he's the Rockers, but you can see the Shawn Michaels is starting to come out. Marty Jannetty plays pretty much second fiddle in that match. He gets beat up. Shawn Michaels comes in and clears house. Then they do a couple of double team moves and get the win. So the Rockers get the win. I give the match 7 body slams. Good match. Nothing really special about it, but it was technically good. There was nothing bad about it either. Match 2, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich against Dino Bravo. I also encourage everybody to check out Dino Bravo's episode on the Dark Side of the Ring series. It's a good episode and very interesting to watch about Dino Bravo and his personal life and how his life came to an end. I said this in a previous review episode. Making Kerry Von Erich a nameless gimmick like the Texas Tornado is just a waste of a good talent. He's a great wrestler. He's got the physique. You don't really get to hear too much of him on the mic, at least in these pay-per-views that I've been reviewing. So I don't know much about if he's got mic skills, but wasting someone like Kerry Von Erich on the Texas Tornado, it's just terrible. It was a terribly short match. It was about 4 minutes from bell to bell. Texas Tornado won against Dino Bravo. I give the match 2 body slams. I gave it an extra body slam because of Kerry Von Erich, so I would have only given it a 1. It was really not a very good match, and especially after starting out with such a great starter match. Match 3 is the British Bulldog against the Warlord, who's I didn't even bother to look up his real name. He's a nameless, faceless gimmick. Bulldog carries the match. He makes Warlord look very good, much better than he actually is. Warlord's a good example of just because you're a big guy doesn't necessarily make you a good wrestler, because he's not. He's not very fluid. He's very stiff for a big guy. He doesn't move all that well, as opposed to some other big men in wrestling. So British Bulldog gets the win. Kind of expected that, even with the big Warlord guy. And Bulldog's a big guy himself, but Warlord had him beat in sheer size. So I was never concerned that he was going to lose, but I gave it 7 body slams because of Bulldog's athleticism and his ability to carry the match against a somebody who's not a very good wrestler. Bulldog made him look very good in that match. The fourth match is the Tag Team Championship. It's the Hart Foundation against the Nasty Boys. Now, Jimmy Hart is also with the Nasty Boys in this. He's their manager. He's also very busy throughout this whole event. He manages, you almost see him in every single match. So out of the 13, 14 matches, he's got to be in at least half of them. I'd say at least 7 of them, if not a little more. I didn't actually mark down how many he was in, but he's the manager for the Nasty Boys. And I also want to point out that Jimmy Hart also has a different coat for each person that he represents. Every time he walks out, he's wearing a coat. When he came out with the Nasty Boys, it was the Nasty Boys. When he came out with Mr. Perfect later on in the card, it's a Mr. Perfect coat. He has a different coat for each person he represents. Jimmy Hart is a great entertainer and a great performer, and he's always great to have at ringside. When this match starts, the Hart Foundation are the tag champions, and you're thinking to yourself, there's no way the Nasty Boys are going to win this. And it's a really good match. This is still the Nasty Boys prime. They can still move. They're not overweight, really. They're pretty fit yet, and they put on a great match with the Hart Foundation. It was really good by both teams. In the end, the Nasty Boys ended up getting the win. I mean, there was cheating involved, of course, but you don't see that coming. Yeah, the Nasty Boys, pulling the win out of WrestleMania for the Tag Team Championship. That's not what you expect when the match starts. You think Bret Hart and Neidhart are going to get the win and retain the titles, but they do not. Then the Nasty Boys pull it out and they get the win. So I give it a 9 body slams for that. I gave it a +1, from an 8 to a 9 because I didn't see the ending coming. I thought for sure the Nasty Boys were going to lose. Thought never would the Nasty Boys win, but they did. All right. Match 5 is potentially the worst gimmick match in all of wrestling. It's a terrible, terrible waste. Okay. Jake the Snake, who is an amazing talent, both in the ring and the way he plays mind game. He's a great performer. He's great in and out of the ring, Jake the Snake. And the model Rick Martel, who is just, another guy. And it's actually kind of weird because Jake the Snake is playing the face or the good guy in this, where he normally would play a bad guy. This match is where they're both, because it's something that Rick the model did and hurt Jake to made him blind in one eye. So this match, they put a hood over both of them. They tie their eyes closed with bandanas, so they're not supposed to be able to see. This is terrible because if you can't see in the ring, then not only is it extremely dangerous, but the wrestlers aren't going to be able to see where they are. It was just I don't recommend you watch it. If you do turn this episode on or turn WrestleMania 7 on, watch this. It's just terrible. It doesn't work. You got both guys there holding onto the ropes at opposite sides of the ring. Jake's the only one that can get the crowd to work for him, and he points in the direction of the model, and then they cheer. And then he goes over and they attack him. And it's a really bad, terrible match. It may be the worst gimmick match of all time, possibly. Then there have been some bad ones. The triple cage with Hogan and Savage against the Alliance to end Hulkamania, the Four Horsemen in the Dungeon of Doom. I can't remember the name of the match, but in WCW, there was like a tractor trailer match where they were in the trailer of an 18-wheeler, and there was hay and stuff. They had to climb over it. They would fight, and they had to make their way and hit the horn at the other end of it. That was also pretty bad. So there have been some bad gimmick matches, but this one might be the worst I've ever seen. And it's a shame to waste a match like that on Jake the Snake when he's such a good performer. Even with the model, Rick Martel, they could have put on a really good match, a solid match, but putting a hood on him, blindfolding him, that's not going to work. Jake the Snake wins, and in the post, it's the post-match stuff. That's, when he takes it off, he gets Damien the Snake out. That's entertaining, but the entire match doesn't work. And it takes way too long. I gave it 0 body slams. I didn't even give it a 1. It's 0 body slams, and I also would give it a 1 thumb to the eye is what I would give that match. Match 6, The Undertaker's first appearance in a WrestleMania. That's another special occasion for WrestleMania 7 here, and he goes against Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Undertaker dominates Snuka throughout the match. He never stand a chance. He gets very little offense on him. And it's clearly a match to just show Undertaker's power and to start building what is going to be the Undertaker's legacy, especially early in his character development. It's not a very long match. It's a short match, but it is good. Jimmy Snuka sells it well. Paul Bearer is always great, just like Jimmy Hart. And of course, the Undertaker is going to win. I gave it a 7 out of 10 body slams because seeing the Undertaker in his first WrestleMania, watching him dominate Jimmy Snuka, who's actually, he's still in pretty good shape at this point. He's a big guy, Snuka, in WrestleMania 7. So watching the Undertaker just dominate him does put the Undertaker over and give him a lot more. Match 7 is probably going to be the match of the entire card. This is going to be the best match that you're going to see on the entire WrestleMania 7 card. It is Ultimate Warrior against the Macho King, who has Sherry by his side. Now, Miss Elizabeth ends up coming out and sitting in the crowd, and she watches this match. She'll come into play later. I am not a big Ultimate Warrior fan. I'm not a big Ultimate Warrior fan. I don't get it. He runs around the ring. Yeah, he's high impact, but there's more to wrestling than just being big and being able to throw people around. You have to be able to sell it. You have to be able to really put on a show. And he does do a good job in this one, the Ultimate Warrior. I'm still not a big fan of him, but in this one, he does do a good job. Macho King Randy Savage. This is after he wins the King of the Ring. He goes by Macho King. And they put on an excellent match. Definitely a potential match of the year candidate for that year. It's a long match. It's a back and forth battle. At one point in time, Savage delivers, I think, 5 of his elbow drops. They both kick out of their finishers. Ultimate Warrior ends up kicking out of those 5 elbow drops, which is, I get it why Savage did like 5 of them, but I don't like that Ultimate Warrior kicked out, and kicking out of finishers was pretty much unheard of at that time. And they both kicked out of each other's finishers. Savage also kicked out of Ultimate Warrior's Gorilla Press Slam and then Splash. The Ultimate Warrior ends up winning the match. And it's and there's some more post-match shenanigans. The Ultimate Warrior wins. Sherry starts kicking him and blaming him that he lost the match. And Miss Elizabeth comes out of the crowd and she does a great job grabbing a hold of Sherry. For someone, Miss Elizabeth doesn't really get involved physically very often, maybe a slap or two. And she did a great job grabbing Sherry by the hair and whipping her around and throwing her right out of the ring. I'm sure some of that was Sherry as well, because Sherry's a great performer as well. And she's been tossed around through her whole career. So she knows how to take a bump. So I have no doubt that some of that was Sherry, but Miss Elizabeth did a great job at grabbing her hair and swinging her around to throw her out of the ring. And, they end up cheering because Macho King and Miss Elizabeth end up, reuniting. He hoists her up onto her shoulder. So the Ultimate Warrior gets the win, but Macho King with their reunion, I give an extra point for the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth stuff. So I gave it 9 body slams out of 10. Okay, that's going to be the match of the entire card right there, I think. Match 8, we got another tag team match. Demolition against Katal and Tenryu. These guys are 2 Japanese stars. This is one of the few times where the WWE is showcasing talent from another country, from another promotion. Vince McMahon doesn't work well with others. The WWE has a history of not working well with other organizations, with the exception of the ECW, and eventually they buy the ECW. It's Smash and Crush of Demolition. And, of course, Gorilla at the beginning mistakenly says Axe and Smash because that is the original Demolition tag team. And then Axe gets injured. or I might have them backwards now, but I believe Axe gets injured, and then Crush joins Demolition, and then they do a 3-man once Axe comes back. You can see based on this match that the two guys from Japan have never been in the ring with Demolition, and they've definitely never tagged with each other, and they're probably not normal tag team wrestlers. Demolition's a good tag team. They do a little bit of back and forth. The Japanese stars don't really do much good tag team working together. It's okay. It's an okay match. In the end, it's to put over the Japanese stars, Katal and Tenryu. They get the win over Demolition, who is an established tag team. So it's definitely significant that Katal and Tenryu, these two Japanese stars, got a win over Demolition. And that's clearly what the match was for, to put them over, because it wasn't a great match. I gave it 6 body slams because Demolition is a good tag team, and there was some good tagging back and forth with Demolition. And the Japanese stars did not do bad. They did a fine job carrying their own in a foreign place, in a foreign company, in a ring that they don't really, that they've never competed in. And rings are different for each organization. You would think that it's not, but it is. The rope tightness, how much spring is in the mat, all of that definitely, you can see it when you watch wrestling, that it differs between these different companies, WCW, WWE, some of the companies in Japan, AEW, they all have different kind of ring setups. Match 9 is the Intercontinental title match. This is probably the second best match on the card. Mr. Perfect, who is the reigning champion, with Bobby Heenan going against Boss Man. Bobby Heenan, again, also very busy. He has a number of men in his stable that wrestle in this. So whenever he's at ringside, they call in the guest commentator. This is prime Boss Man. He's a big man, but he moves fast. He can move strong. He gets high in the air when he jumps. And this is prime Boss Man. So you get to see him fly around the ring in this. Mr. Perfect is always great. He's great when he delivers moves, and he's great at selling moves. There's very few people who are better at selling move or putting someone over than Mr. Perfect is. It's a great match. It's not too long, but it's not too short. It's a good match. Some of Bobby Heenan's family members, I believe it's the Heenan family, I believe is what his stable's called, comes down and they interfere and gets Mr. Perfect disqualified. So the Boss Man wins, but by DQ, so he doesn't win the Intercontinental title. Andre the Giant, this is where Andre makes his appearance. He comes down to the ring and helps Big Boss Man, chases Bobby the Brain around the ring. It's cool. But the overall match, it's a good match, and I give it 8 out of 10 body slams. From there, they show us some celebrity guests that they have watching the show. Donald Trump, Chuck Norris, Henry Winkler, and Lou Ferrigno. And they all ask him a few questions, about being their first WrestleMania. And Donald Trump has had history with the WWE prior to this. So they do a little segment there where they talk to Mean Gene talks to some of the celebrity guests that they have in the crowd. Match 10, another decent match. Not great, but definitely not bad. It's Earthquake against Greg the Hammer Valentine. This is a good match. Greg the Hammer Valentine isn't a big man. He's not considered a big man, even though he is a little on the larger side, and he's definitely not as big as Earthquake. But this was a good big man, hard-hitting match between the two. Earthquake ends up getting the win. No surprise there. I gave it 7 body slams because it was a good, hard-hitting match between big guys. Match 11, I know this is a full card, I'm telling you. Match 11 is, this is what's going to be a squash match. And it's between the Legion of Doom against a tag team called Power and Glory. I didn't look them up. They're not around for very long. And this is an LOD squash match. This match really never begins. The referee kind of rings the bell. There's a little brawl between the Legion of Doom and Power and Glory between all 4 men. They're inside the ring. They're outside the ring a little bit. It ends up leading, I believe the match is a total of 4 minutes long. And then, of course, the Legion of Doom, they throw one out of the ring. They get the other one up on his shoulders. And then Hawk hits him with the Doomsday device. They get the victory. I give it 8 body slams, +1 for it being the Legion of Doom, and +1 for it being a really good squash match. So it went from a 6 to an 8 because squash matches aren't as easy to do as you'd think, and some people don't like them. Short match. There's not really much of a show, but it just goes to show LOD's power, and they did a great job with it. They timed everything perfectly, including their Doomsday device. So. And that's the difference between this match and some of the other short matches that there were on this card. This one was a straight LOD squash match, just squashing Power and Glory and just crushing them in a couple of minutes. And they did it they did it right. Match 12 is the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, the self-proclaimed $1 Million champion. He walks down with that $1 Million championship belt around his waist. And he's going against his former bodyguard, Virgil, who's got Piper in his corner. Piper's got a knee injury. He's got crutches on for this. I don't know if it was supposed to be Piper and Ted DiBiase, and then he got injured, so they brought Virgil in. I'm not really sure what happened, or if Piper was not really injured and it just went to go to part of the storyline to tell the Virgil, Ted DiBiase. Virgil's not a great wrestler. He's never been a great wrestler, but DiBiase carries the match, and he is a great heel, and he's a good in the ring. He can do some moves. The crowd was into the match. They told a good story, and Piper, of course, is always entertaining. He's always entertaining every time. It doesn't matter what he's doing. Virgil beats DiBiase by countouts, which went with the story because DiBiase had been counted out in a match when Virgil had distracted him before. This time, Piper not distracted him, but he got distracted by Piper. DiBiase was distracted by Piper, ends up getting counted out. It worked with the story. The crowd was into it. I gave it 7 body slams. Match 13. This is the match prior to the main event. This is a match that has no business being on the card. I don't know what it was doing there. I honestly couldn't tell you. It offered nothing. It was Tito Santana against the Mountie. I'm not a fan of really any of them. Tito Santana's fine. I know he's got a lot of history in wrestling, and the Mountie is the Mountie. I don't really, I've never really been a fan of the Mountie. He's a good jobber, and he was the Intercontinental Champion at one point, which is crazy how that happened. But he's pretty much the last of the gimmick wrestlers that the WWE has at this point. They're moving away from. The Mountie win, and it's over as quick. The Mountie wins in like 3 minutes, which is crazy for the Mountie to get a win, first of all, and then to win that fast was also crazy to see him get it. I don't really get it what the whole match was for. The only thing I can come up with, and perhaps, is that it was punishment. Maybe Tito Santana did something and was on the outs with Vince McMahon or somebody in management, and they wanted to give him some punishment. I don't really get why Tito Santana was beaten that fast by the Mountie in the match right before the main event. I gave it 3 body slams. I wasn't invested in the match. The match ended too quickly for me to even care what I was even watching. So I gave him 3, and that's generous. The main event, match 14 matches on the card. It went over 3 hours, the event. It's very long. WrestleMania 7 is very long. Unfortunately, it's Hulk Hogan. Sergeant Slaughter's currently the champion. This is when he does his heel turn. He's got General Ahmad with him, and he's anti-American at this point, making him a top heel. Hogan's pro-America, making him the top face. And the crowd is into it. They're into the America versus foreign battle that's happening. I'm not a big Hogan fan. I've never really been a big Hogan fan. A little bit maybe when I was a kid before I saw some other wrestlers and what wrestling really was. Most of his matches are kind of crap. This is no exception. His moveset really is garbage and really leaves a lot to be desired. He punches, he rakes his back, he does the big boot, he does the leg drop. There's not really a whole lot else that Hogan has to offer, really, except the Hulk up. And that's how it ends. He hulks up, big boot, leg drop, pin. Hulk Hogan becomes a world champion, defeating the anti-American heel. And that's what happens. The match only goes for, I think it's going to be about 18 minutes, maybe 15 to 18 minutes. So not short, but not super long. There were definitely some other matches, both the Intercontinental title match with Mr. Perfect and the other match that I said was very good also. The Hart Foundation was a nice lengthy match. That was good. The Ultimate Warrior and Macho King, that being the top match on the card, and that definitely went far longer than the main event. So, but it's Hogan, he doesn't really have a lot to offer. I give it 7 body slams. I give it +1 because the crowd was into it, and the story between Hogan and Slaughter, they were into it. So I gave him a +1. I took it from a 6 to a 7. Because the crowd was into it. They were into Hogan being the face, Slaughter being the heel, and you can't deny that. That was the main event, and that was overall the whole thing was a really good show. You got to see a little bit of everything. Definitely some of the quick matches there was a couple of pointless matches, and the gimmick match with Jake the Snake was just the worst. So I'm not really, overall, I'd say the whole thing, I'd give it about probably an 8 on the body slam scale as a whole, because there were some really great matches. The Intercontinental title match, the Macho King match, there were some really good matches on the card, and the crowd was really into the main event. So there were some good matches on the card, but there was also a lot of stuff that I didn't really understand. So overall, I'll give it an 8, and it's definitely been the best one we reviewed so far. Out of all the pay-per-views that we've reviewed, this has definitely been the best one so far. So I appreciate that. If anybody else wants us to review something, please leave us a comment, send us a message, send us an email, and we will do a review of of whatever you'd like. Marcus Fredrickson does the music. He plays us in and out of every episode on Mayhem Media and our sister show, the Boiling Point Podcast. Make sure you check out his channel, reverbnation.com/Marcus Fredrickson. We have some other stuff coming up. We got more MCU episodes coming up with Robbie H. They're going to be starting in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll be doing some of them. We'll have a special Dungeons and Dragons series that we're developing, and we'll be putting on probably sometime here this summer, maybe June or July. We're also developing still the Yellowstone Universe series. We're going to be starting with 1883. Expect to see that probably sometime towards the end of May, maybe even early June. And even though we did miss the NFL draft, we will be doing some NFL episodes throughout the season once the regular season starts. We might do an episode in preseason, but we'll be doing regular episodes once the season starts. So make sure you look for that. Check out our storefront, please. Get some new apparel. Bonfire.com/store/JDEDESIGNz. That's with a Z at the end of it. There, as you can see it on the screen. Check out our storefront. Pick up our some new apparel that we have, and share out this episode, please. Leave us a comment if you would be willing. We want to increase our reach and try and reach more people. So anything you can do, likes, comments, and shares. That's going to be the end.